Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And in this one, I will be covering a Discipline Priest solo shuffle guide, how to climb at low rating, how to get unstuck. You might feel like you can't move. You're going up and down on the roller coaster of rating, down 500, up 500, and you just can't move from your top end rating. So in today's video, I'm going to cover how to get unstuck. So the first thing to take into consideration is how are you using your defensive cooldowns? You want to be using these very early in the match. You want to be using pain suppression very early, usually on the first stun. You want to be getting ahead of the damage. So this way it enables you to attack. This is going to be the best way to climb, is to try and pump out as much damage as you can as a priest without having your team going down. So in this match, I'm paying attention to who the enemies are attacking. I'm getting my dots up. I'm pushing aggressively. I'm getting fears onto the enemy healer. And I will have forsaken immediately out of the first fear. I'm immediately going offensive. I've got Schism, Mind Games, Smites, and Mind Blasts, and I'm doing as much damage as possible. Here the Rogue has used Trinket Evasion. My Demon Hunter's used Blur, so I'm not going to use Pain Suppression on top of these defensive cooldowns. I can see them glowing. You need to get Omni CD. Once those cooldowns are over, now I'm a little bit more worried. I'm going to use Rapture. This is going to tide me over, allow me to keep doing damage while maintaining my Power Word shields, while weaving in Mind Blasts and Smite back to back. My Rogue is stunned. Pain Suppression. I literally don't even think about it. I toss out Pain Suppression right away on that stun because I know rogues are susceptible to dying in stuns, and I don't want my team to be playing too defensively. Then they get bursted again. I give them another charge of pain suppression because my Demon Hunter still has Nether Walk. We're going to Trinket out of blind right away, again launching out as much damage as we can, Schism into Shadow or Death, and immediately cracking our opponents down. This is the main thing you got to be doing as a Discipline Priest, especially at low rating. Now as you get like to the top end of the ladder, you may end up getting punished for this type of play, but at low rating you will not. Enemies send all of their buttons right off the gate. You need to be responding to it right away as soon as possible, making these efficient trades, because if you're not, you're just going to be outright dead. The next thing to winning at low rating is calling your targets. You need, as a healer, this is one thing you can control to end the game. Don't just type nothing. Type who you want your teammates to attack. So here I've told my teammates to attack the healer and the Demon Hunter if they trinkets, and I want to make sure that that's clear so we're all on the same page. Because if they're hitting random things, and this happens a lot at low rating, you're not winning that round, as opposed to if the other team is focused. So now I'm paying attention. My Rogue's in a stun. I'm watching, I'm monitoring. The Warrior is Kidney Shot. Usually I like using Rapture as my first defensive, just because it's going to enable you to do more damage with the reflective shields. So I'm spamming out these Power Word shields, reflecting damage back onto my opponents, and it's really effective at healing through Sharpened Blade and Mortal Wounds effects because it's an absorb and not a heal. Now I can see my Rogue has evasion, so we're going to get aggressive. We're going to Schism, Penance, we're going to Mind Games, we're going to dump as much damage as we possibly can here, and we end up getting the life swap from the Priest, and then we make a swap onto the Priest after that, and we can immediately do damage, Shadow or Death range, get Mind Games, play really offensive, stay in their face, and absolutely crush them. So this is really important to pick these targets, pick these calls, try and decide ahead of time, like, we need to be hitting this. At least try and be on the same page. Now, there is a priority list of classes, generally, like Ret Paladin's at the top of the list. If there's a Ret Paladin, you want to be hitting that. If there's a Hunter, generally speaking, you want to be hitting that. If there's a Rogue, you usually want to be hitting that. If there's a Warrior, you want to be hitting that. Honestly, this lobby has a lot of squishy classes, so you could really hit whatever you want, which then, again, you need to organize that. You need to organize your players. Just make a clear call on what you want to be targeted, so at least you're all attacking the same thing, because you're going to lose so many rounds. I've lost so many rounds just because I spaced out thinking that I could expect my teammates to know that they need to attack the same thing. Don't do that at low rating. Just type like, let's go Warrior. You don't have to be like toxic about it. Just, hey, let's go Warrior, so that everybody's like, okay, we're all on the same page here. So we've got the healer imprisoned. I'm monitoring for Stormbolt. I'm monitoring for Kidney Shot. When I see those on my allies, I'm trying to fear the trinket here on the Priest to just really start putting them behind. I see my Demon Hunter as Blur, so I'm just going to get offensive. I'm going to do damage to the Rogue. I don't care about pain suppression. I'm going to keep attacking. We get life swaps. We're going to dot up all of the opponents. We're going to Schism Mind Games, dump in as much pressure as possible. So now the healer's doing damage. Rally's about to fall. Barrier on Smoke Bomb is a really good counter. You're going to see a lot of rogues, so saving your powered barrier for Smoke Bomb or Shadowy Duel if they're subtlety as they get out of the Smoke Bomb. We're going to pain suppression the Demon Hunter, who now doesn't have Blur, so we're monitoring who doesn't have defensives. My Demon Hunter now has Nether Walk. My Rogue has nothing, so this last charge of pain suppression probably going to be saved for the Rogue here. And now we can see a Kidney Shot, so we're going to grip the Rogue away from the Kidney Shot, monitor the damage here if we need to pain suppression or not. Healer's imprisoned, so we want to be doing some damage here. Channeling out Smites, fishing for Mind Games, getting offensive, pushing towards the healer, getting a full fear, and then getting the Rogue down into Shadow or Death range, and being able to completely just outright run them down. So just staying in a good position, staying at a safe distance while maximizing your damage and being aware of when your allies are stunned is going to be important for going like 6-0 in lower rated or even mid-range lobbies. And honestly, even at high rating, I think that you can play this type of highly aggressive style and still succeed, because if you don't, if people are on wrong things and the game is going to prolong, you're going to run out of mana, you're going to run out of cooldowns, you're going to get CC'd, and you're not going to be as efficient as the other healers in the game. Discipline strength is the amount of damage it can do and the volume of cooldowns that it has in comparison to other healers. So you want to be exploiting that as much as possible. We're charging forward, we're getting our atonement up with renew here and resetting the cooldown of powered shield, getting dots up, getting combat right away against these rogues, and just immediately shoving schism onto the priest here. I said let's go priest, let's tunnel the healer because the rogues are going to be in stealth. This is hopefully going to snowball us a bit. We get both rogues feared, and I'm just immediately pressing Rapture almost out of the gate, and I'm power infusing whoever I think is going to do the most damage. So Arms Warriors do a truck ton of damage with Spear, Bastion, and Blade Storm, so I wanted to give power infusion to the Warrior because that's a high likelihood of just absolutely one-shotting somebody, and that's who I wanted to give my power infusion to. At lower ratings, I don't suggest giving power infusion to casters. Most of the time, they're going to get tunneled. They're not going to be the most efficient in getting their damage rotation out. Here we use Barrier on Shadowy Duel. We can Radiance heal through Shadowy Duel as well as Bomb. Really important to save these mechanics against rogues in these situations, and grip your allies into your barrier if they run out of it. We end up dropping Darkness, so I didn't really need to pain suppression here. Again, that's just a communication thing, but we're still pushing towards the healer, still training them down to as much as possible. We get DR blinded, we're gonna have to trinket, use our powered life when it starts glowing and somebody's low health, get the bonus healing, and we end up using Dab of the Sword here and life swap. Honestly, I think he was about to die if I didn't do it. I'm not 100% sure if I even end up dying after this, but powered life really effective at getting you back up, and I'm not really generally afraid of dying as a disciplined priest. In a lot of cases, I feel like it's pretty easy to recover with powered life. We're desperately trying to cling to our warrior's life here, trying to get him going, but we've already ran out of steam at this point. We weren't able to connect enough damage. And honestly, if I had details, I could probably pin down like what exactly went wrong there as far as that round not winning. And honestly, it was probably the strat. Honestly, going after the priest was probably a mistake. Unless you're a Death Knight, I don't think targeting a disciplined priest is generally a good idea. If we had been on rogue in that lobby, going back in hindsight, I probably would have said go assassination rogue as opposed to subtlety, because they have less vanish charges, so they're going to be able to avoid your damage less frequently and probably do more damage towards the rogues as opposed to just the healer in those situations, because again, it's a priority list of like what's the easiest to kill. Disc Priest is harder to kill than everything else in this lobby, generally speaking, even after you've seen a couple times where we've both used Void Shift and we still don't go down. So here again, we want to try and power infusion the warrior. Our rogue is really deep at the moment. Like they went ham and they've used Death Mark, they've used every ability, so we're trying to barrier the bomb, we're trying to get big shields, they vanish away from the fight. As long as we survive this opener, we're still going to be in a good position, because that was all of the damaging cooldowns from the assassination rogue. So it's just really important to survive the first couple seconds of the game. We've kidney shot the Demon Hunter. We Shadowy Duel, and I'm a bit confused as to why the Demon Hunter ends up taking no damage at the end of it, but looks like he takes no damage by the end of it. And now we still have one more charge of pain suppression. We still have life swap. I really like using Void Shift as my last cooldown. Can be risky when you don't have your trinket to pair with it. We end up getting stunned here. We can pain suppression, we can recover, and our warrior and our rogue are just going after the other priest. This ended up just turning into kind of a Zug lobby, and in this case we did actually successfully kill the priest, but it can be really risky to try and do that. Generally speaking, if you're going to make this decision to run down the enemy healer, the best time to do it is when you've identified somebody in your lobby that's probably going to go 0-6. It's just a DPS they're flimsy, they're doing half the damage of everybody else. Sometimes the best strat for a player like that when they're on your team is just YOLO the healer and hope they choke, especially at low to mid-range rating. So if you've noticed that, you're looking at the lobby, and you're like, okay, that guy's gone like 0-4 right now. He's doing half the damage of everybody. It can be a good idea in that position to just type to your team, let's kill the healer, because there's going to maybe be higher odds that they just choke and throw the game, and you can get an extra round win with somebody that was going to go 0-6 otherwise. So do take that into consideration. Definitely an effective strategy. Here we've got our atonements up. We're getting our Purge the Wickets on as many targets as we can, and we're just immediately sending on the priest here. You can see Death Mark on the priest first global. Need to dispel crowd control on our allies here. I dispel the rogue because he's got Death Mark. I want him to connect here. We see a kidney shot. We're going to Rapture. We're not even going to think about it. Now evasion is popped. Die by the Sword is popped. I like this type of play style, especially at low to mid range rating. Enemies have used cooldowns. Enemies have stunned you. Just immediately start bolstering your defense to limit the likelihood that you're just immediately going to topple over due to the burst damage of a lot of specializations currently. Here we end up stunning the priest on DR, which is a pretty big mistake. I tried barrier around the to get line of sight, but at this point it really doesn't matter. We've already Shadow Word Death, we've already clocked them, they're already out. So the only round that we lost in this lobby was one lobby where I told my Demon Hunter and Warrior to go on the Priest, and when we look at it, the Warrior and the Demon Hunter had the lowest number of wins. So to be honest, doing that line of play, that strategy going to the heal, I don't think it was necessarily bad. Sometimes you're just not going to be able to go 0-6. Sometimes they're just not doing as of effective job as they need to be doing in these given circumstances, although we should be trying to aim to find the best possible route to try and get a 6-0, especially at low to mid range, so that we can get our MMR juiced up. So we're going to climb a lot faster than everybody else and get towards our rewards a lot quicker. Sometimes it's just not going to happen, but do just note that the main things to take away from this video: use defensive cooldowns early and often so that it enables you to attack. That's important as a discipline priest. You need to be attacking, and activating your defensives early is going to enable you to do that. The second important thing is to type a target. Honestly, it doesn't even matter if it's the worst target in the game, but you need to type a target in the lobby, because as a disc priest, if your team is just screwing around, not doing the right stuff, and the game goes too long, you're going to lose. So you just need to make sure you're typing a target in the lobby. And then the third thing, which is that kind of YOLO strat, if you notice somebody that's going 0-6, having a really rough lobby, just type go healer if they're on your team. Best case scenario, healer chokes and you get a win, and otherwise you wouldn't have got it. I think that's generally the best way to take that type of situation in that lobby. But anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you got something out of it, and I hope that it helps you climb and gets to your rating. If you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button to always be up to date with patch changes and updates and news related to World of Warcraft, as well as entertaining and educational PvP content. But until next time, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.